Why choosing peace destroys an empath's relationships. Peace is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of inner strength. In today's world, where emotions run high and relationships feel like battlegrounds, choosing peace can sometimes make you look cold or distant, especially if you're an empath. But what if peace isn't weakness? What if it's the highest form of strength? In this video from Spiritual Wisdom, we'll explore why choosing peace often leads to misunderstandings, how it transforms your energy, and why it might even cause certain relationships to fall apart. As you listen, ask yourself, have you ever lost someone simply because you refused to fight? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might help another empath find clarity today. 1. The boundary crisis, exposure phase. When the empath begins to say no, the world around him shifts, and the silence that follows often feels louder than any argument. People who were once warm begin to react with guilt, anger, or quiet withdrawal. But this is not proof that you have done something wrong. It is evidence that something hidden is being exposed. What you are uncovering are unspoken contracts, those invisible emotional agreements that whispered, "I'll abandon myself so you feel loved." You have lived under them for years, mistaking sacrifice for spirituality, mistaking silence for peace. In truth, real spiritual awakening begins when you dare to disturb false peace, when you realize that boundaries do not destroy love, they reveal its depth. The pain that comes with this awakening is real. Neuroscientist Dr. Naomi Eisenberger discovered that emotional rejection activates the same areas in the brain as physical pain. That's why your chest aches and your throat tightens when someone withdraws after you finally speak your truth. It's not weakness, it's biology. Yet beneath that pain lies liberation. Each time you honor your boundaries, you are teaching your nervous system that safety can coexist with honesty, that peace built on suppression is not peace, but a prison. This is the crisis every empath must face. The boundary crisis, the exposure phase where your relationships stop being about pleasing others and start becoming about truth. When you stop abandoning yourself, the false layers of connection fall away. People who depend on your compliance may see your calm as defiance, your clarity as cruelty, your silence as arrogance. But those who love you in truth will stay. They will adapt, listen, and grow alongside you. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors that separate what is sacred from what is draining. They teach others how to love the real you, not the version sculpted by guilt and fear. And yes, some will leave. Let them. Their departure does not signify your failure. It marks the end of transactions disguised as love. In this stage of spiritual awakening, you will learn that choosing peace does not mean avoiding conflict. It means standing in your truth without needing to fight. You will feel your energy shift from being reactive to being centered. The empath's greatest lesson is that self-abandonment is not compassion. It is martyrdom in disguise. When you release that pattern, you stop absorbing everyone else's chaos and begin radiating calm from within. Spirituality, then, is not about floating above human emotions. It's about standing grounded in your integrity, even when it costs you approval. So when guilt arises, breathe. When silence stretches, stay present. Tell yourself, I am not losing people. I am losing illusions. Notice how your body steadies when you no longer chase understanding from those committed to misunderstanding you. Notice how your spirit expands when you no longer compress your light to fit dim rooms. The exposure phase is not punishment, it is purification. It shows you who can walk with you in authenticity and who only loves the mask. As you continue this journey, your boundaries will become your peace. They will attract relationships rooted in mutual respect and repel those built on control. Every no you speak with clarity creates space for a deeper yes. Yes to yourself. Yes to real connection. Yes to the kind of peace that can survive truth. This is what it means to live awake. To love without losing yourself. To give without disappearing. And to honor your soul as much as you honor others. In the end, it's not the loss of people that hurts. It's the shedding of who you thought you had to be. But on the other side of that shedding is freedom. And that freedom is what true spirituality has always been about. Are you ready to face the boundary crisis and reclaim your peace? If this message resonates with you, comment below. I choose peace with power. Let this be your declaration that you're no longer losing yourself in the name of harmony. 2. The testing phase. The testing phase is the moment when your spirituality and spiritual growth are truly measured. When people begin to pull you back into old dynamics through guilt, emotional crisis, manipulation, or silence. They sense that your energy has changed, that you're no longer available to absorb their pain, and they will unconsciously try to restore the version of you that once kept them emotionally comfortable. This is when the empath's greatest challenge emerges, the part of you that still believes love means fixing, rescuing, or carrying someone else's burden. But as Jung said, compassion does not equal rescuing others. You can deeply care without taking responsibility for their emotions. This understanding marks the turning point between emotional dependency and emotional freedom, between being drained and being aligned. When you choose peace, it will not feel peaceful at first. The guilt hits harder than you expect. The silence feels sharp, and the fear of loss becomes overwhelming. Most people give up here, not because they lack love, but because they confuse guilt with goodness. They think saying no means being unkind. Yet this is the spiritual crossroads where true strength is born, when you learn to stand firm in compassion without bending under guilt. You realize that choosing yourself does not mean abandoning others. It means you finally refuse to abandon your own soul. Those who rely on your emotional energy will try to test you through withdrawal, tears, or blame. But your only task is to remain grounded in truth, to love without losing yourself, to be kind without being consumed. This is the invisible training of spiritual growth. Staying calm when chaos demands your reaction, holding your boundaries when your heart aches to comfort, and trusting that peace is not passive. It is power under control. You start to understand that not every problem is your assignment. Not every cry is a call for you to fix. And not every relationship can survive your awakening. Real spirituality teaches that love rooted in truth respects both your will and theirs. It allows everyone to grow at their own pace. The more you expand, the more you will be misunderstood, but the cost of peace is always worth paying. So when life tests you through guilt or manipulation, remember this: staying peaceful doesn't mean being detached. It means being aligned with your higher self. You are not rejecting anyone. You're simply refusing to betray yourself. Growth often feels like loss because your old identity is dissolving. But it's in that space of discomfort where the soul learns to love without chains. Peace maintained through self-respect isn't destruction, it's liberation. The true lesson of this phase is simple yet profound. Never let guilt convince you to step backward. What feels like separation is actually your initiation into wholeness, the silent victory of an awakened heart that finally knows the difference between saving others and saving your own soul. Comment below, I am ready for the test, if you're entering this phase with courage and awareness. Remember, every challenge that tests your peace is shaping your spiritual strength. Stay grounded, stay conscious, and let your journey of spiritual wisdom continue. 3. The sorting phase. Every empath eventually reaches what Carl Jung called the sorting phase, a spiritual turning point where the peace you choose begins to dismantle everything that was built on imbalance. You've spent most of your life being the one who absorbs pain, fixes chaos, and restores calm. But when you finally choose peace, not as avoidance, but as alignment, you begin to see the truth behind every connection. Suddenly, people around you start to reveal who they truly are. Some transform with you, others resist you, and a few simply fall away. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." And in this phase, that fate becomes visible. The hidden wounds, unspoken expectations, and emotional dependencies all rise to the surface. Take Elizabeth, for example. Her husband, after years of projecting his own pain onto her, began to face his wounds when her calm no longer absorbed his storms. Instead of fighting her silence, he grew. He became more grounded, more aware, more whole. Her mother, who had always crossed boundaries, learned to respect them, not because Elizabeth demanded it with anger, but because her quiet self-respect made negotiation impossible. Yet her sister, who thrived on emotional drama, couldn't tolerate this shift. Peace to her felt like distance, and she left, unable to exist in a space that no longer revolved around chaos. It's painful, yes, but it's not punishment. It's purification. This is how spiritual wisdom unfolds. It strips away everything that once fed your people-pleasing nature. You begin to realize that your empathy was never meant to be a prison. True peace doesn't mean avoiding conflict. It means no longer abandoning yourself for the sake of others. Jung taught that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. And that's exactly what happens in the sorting phase. Some relationships transform and deepen, while others dissolve because they were never built to withstand your evolution. When you stop being the emotional caretaker, the ones who depended on your energy will fall away, revealing who was walking beside you and who was merely leaning on you. Choosing peace is not weakness. It's the strongest act of self-ownership. It is saying no without guilt, creating space without fear, and allowing silence to speak where explanation once did. You move from quantity to quality, from emotional extraction to true reciprocity. You stop measuring love by effort and start recognizing it by respect. The loss that once felt unbearable becomes clarity. The solitude that once felt empty becomes sacred. This is what spiritual awakening feels like. It's not just light. It's also the fire that burns away illusion. As your energy rises, peace becomes your filter. You'll notice who can meet you in silence and who only knows you through noise. You'll see who loves your soul and who loves your role. And in that realization, you'll understand that endings are not failures. They are realignments. You are not losing connection. You are gaining coherence. You're no longer driven by the need to fix, but by the desire to flow. This is the hidden gift of choosing peace. It may destroy the old versions of your relationships, but it rebuilds them in truth. As Carl Jung reminded us, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. But once you walk through that pain, you discover that peace was never meant to please others. It was meant to free you. Don't forget to subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom for more insights on how choosing peace can reveal who truly aligns with your energy and soul path. Stay tuned for more Jungian psychology lessons that help you grow through the sorting phase. 4. The isolation trap. Henrik thought that cutting everyone off was the path to peace. He believed that solitude was enlightenment, that silence was proof of awakening, and that distance meant growth. Yet what began as a spiritual practice soon became a slow descent into disconnection. He mistook withdrawal for wisdom, turning self-care into avoidance and calling it spirituality. This is the isolation trap, a silent illusion that convinces empaths and seekers that peace requires detachment from others. But as Carl Jung said, individuation does not isolate. It connects on conscious terms. True spiritual awakening does not demand separation. It asks for awareness and connection. It's not about running away from chaos, but learning how to stand within it without losing your center. When isolation is mistaken for enlightenment, subtle signs begin to surface. Relationships fade, not because they're toxic, but because the person can no longer tolerate vulnerability. Spiritual superiority begins to creep in, whispering, "I am above this." Mental health starts to decline, though it's disguised as stillness. Emotional numbness becomes the new normal. The very practices meant to heal meditation, solitude, reflection become tools of avoidance. And instead of growing in love and compassion, the person builds invisible walls, mistaking loneliness for purity. The ego cleverly hides behind the language of light, using phrases like energy protection or self-care to avoid facing the discomfort that real human connection requires. Jung warned that individuation, the process of becoming whole, cannot happen in isolation because the self discovers itself through relationship. Every interaction, every conflict, every connection acts as a mirror, revealing the parts of us we cannot see alone. Without these mirrors, the psyche begins to distort its own reflection. You start believing you are at peace simply because no one challenges you. You stop hearing your own projections, and the spiritual path turns into a hall of mirrors where only your voice echoes back. This is not awakening. It's self-imprisonment dressed as serenity. Spirituality was never meant to be a retreat from life. It was meant to be a deeper participation in it, with open eyes and a grounded heart. Healthy differentiation is what transforms solitude from exile into empowerment. It means you can be alone without being lonely, connected without being consumed. Boundaries are not barriers. They are sacred lines that protect the flow of genuine connection. Real peace is not found in the absence of people, but in the ability to stay centered when surrounded by them. It's the calm that stands firm even when others are loud. It's knowing that your stillness is strong enough to coexist with the movement of the world. When your spirituality matures, You stop seeking escape and begin seeking harmony, the kind of balance that lets you remain soft yet grounded, open yet discerning. The purpose of solitude is to return to connection as a more conscious being. The moment it makes you feel superior or detached, it stops serving your evolution. True spiritual awakening reminds you that you are both the ocean and the wave, both the seeker and the mirror. You don't ascend by escaping the world. You rise by embracing it consciously. Choosing peace should never mean cutting ties with humanity. It should mean deepening your compassion, expanding your patience, and learning how to love without losing yourself. Because in the end, peace isn't the absence of connection. It's the presence of awareness in every connection you choose to keep. 5. The rebuilding phase, reciprocal relationships. Elizabeth's connection with Marie reflects the kind of relationship that emerges after deep spiritual growth, balanced, grounded, and mutual. It's no longer about saving, fixing, or sacrificing, but about standing side by side in truth. In this space, friendship becomes an exchange of energy, not a draining transaction. Both value emotional honesty over pretense, respect over control, and support that flows both ways. Each person is whole within themselves, so love and care come from overflow, not emptiness. The empath, who once gave too much, finally learns that peace doesn't mean pulling away from the world. It means engaging with clarity, boundaries, and self-respect. This is the difference between dependency and reciprocity. In one, you lose yourself to keep another. In the other, you meet each other from fullness. As Jung once said, you cannot maintain individuation in isolation. You need others who have also chosen wholeness. That truth becomes the foundation of mature connection. Individuation isn't loneliness. It's learning to be whole enough to relate without dissolving. When you've done the inner work of spiritual awakening, you stop fearing separation. Space no longer feels like abandonment, but like oxygen. Autonomy is not rejection, it's respect. Communication becomes clear because you no longer speak to please, you speak to connect. You can say no without guilt and yes without fear. In these new relationships, silence isn't punishment, it's peace. There's no need to constantly prove loyalty or chase attention because both people know that love doesn't require performance, only presence. Wholeness replaces chaos. You begin to understand that spirituality isn't about detaching from others. It's about relating from authenticity. You no longer feel responsible for everyone's healing. Instead, you hold space without losing yourself. Boundaries no longer feel like walls. They become bridges of clarity that preserve the sacred flow between souls. When support flows both ways, both grow stronger. You start to see that true intimacy is not built on constant closeness, but on freedom. The freedom to be fully yourself while still being deeply connected. This is the essence of spiritual growth, learning to stay rooted in your own center while allowing love to move naturally through you. The rebuilding phase, then, becomes a sacred return to balance. You stop craving intensity and start craving harmony. You no longer settle for people who drain your energy or confuse your peace for indifference. Instead, you attract those who meet you where you are awake, whole, and grounded in self-awareness. The lessons of the past remain your silent teachers. Overgiving taught you the value of reciprocity. Loneliness taught you the gift of autonomy, and pain taught you the necessity of clarity. Now, Peace no longer destroys your relationships. It refines them. It filters out chaos and reveals who is capable of standing with you in truth. And when that happens, you realize that love, in its purest form, is not about losing yourself to another. It's about walking together in freedom, respect, and shared wholeness. If you find this content touching your heart, please consider becoming a member to receive more in-depth lessons and direct support from me. 6. The integration phase. When you enter the integration phase of your healing, you start to realize that choosing peace doesn't mean avoiding life or disconnecting from others. It means learning to walk the sacred edge between solitude and connection. For many empaths, this stage becomes the most transformative because it teaches you to be alone without loneliness, to love without losing yourself, and to give without being consumed. Elizabeth embodies this balance beautifully. She spends time alone often, but her solitude is full, not empty. She connects deeply, yet her boundaries remain intact. She is firm when needed, but flexible enough to bend without breaking. This is the essence of mature emotional and spiritual wisdom that holds both softness and strength. To reach that place, you must start treating your boundaries not as rigid walls, but as living organisms that evolve with your growth. A powerful practice is to review your boundaries every month, not from fear, but from awareness. Ask yourself, where did I betray my peace to keep someone comfortable? Where did I silence my truth to avoid rejection? What relationships feel reciprocal, and which ones drain my light? When you begin to reflect with this level of honesty, your energy starts to shift. You stop begging for space because you start embodying it. You no longer over-explain why you need time alone, because solitude becomes your sanctuary rather than your defense. Carl Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." In this phase, that quote takes on new meaning. Individuation, the process Jung described as the journey to wholeness, is not about isolation. It's about becoming so self-aware that connection no longer threatens your autonomy. It's about standing rooted in your own essence while still allowing intimacy to touch you. When you live from this place, you understand that peace is not a withdrawal from love, but the refinement of it. You don't seek harmony through suppression. You create harmony through truth. You realize that real love does not require self-abandonment, and real peace does not require silence. One of the most practical tools in this phase is regular relationship evaluation. After every significant interaction, pause and ask, do I feel seen or unseen? Respected or dismissed? Nourished or drained? Your nervous system keeps a record even when your mind tries to rationalize. These reflections help you see who meets you in your fullness and who only meets you when you shrink. You will learn that saying no to one-sided relationships is not cruelty, it's clarity. You will start to see that your calmness isn't a threat to connection, but a filter for alignment. Jung's final wisdom captures this truth perfectly. The goal of individuation is not to become separate, but separable. Separable means you can love fully, yet release easily. It means you can walk away without bitterness because you stayed truthful while you were there. It means you no longer need to be everything for everyone. You simply need to be whole within yourself. When you reach that stage, your peace no longer destroys your relationships. It transforms them. Because when your peace is rooted in awareness, not avoidance, it teaches others how to meet you there too. That is the true integration, where your empathy no longer weakens you, but becomes the highest expression of your spiritual wisdom, and where, as Carl Jung taught, your soul learns to hold both the light and the shadow without losing its balance. In the end, choosing peace isn't about avoiding love. It's about protecting your energy so love can grow in truth. Every empath must learn that peace is not the absence of connection, but the presence of self-respect. When you stop chasing chaos, you begin to attract people who can meet your calm with maturity and presence. So today, take a moment to ask yourself, are you choosing peace from fear or from power? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's grow together on this path of spiritual awakening. You've been watching Spiritual Wisdom. May peace always be your superpower. Carl Jung's shocking truth: how to stop wasting your life. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung once said, reminding us that so much of what we call destiny is simply the result of living on autopilot. In this video on spiritual wisdom, we will uncover Jung's shocking truth about how to stop wasting your life and start living with intention. Ask yourself honestly, are you living fully or merely existing? As you listen, I'd love to hear your reflections. Share your thoughts in the comments, and let us know how you plan to apply these principles to create a life of growth, purpose, and happiness. 1. The feeling of emptiness is a signal, not a defect. That persistent sense of emptiness you sometimes feel deep inside is not a flaw in your character, nor is it simply anxiety or depression, but rather a profound message from the soul. Carl Jung taught that psychological suffering is not an illness to be silenced, but the psyche's own attempt to heal and self-correct when life strays too far from inner truth. What you mistake for weakness is in fact a signal, the soul's cry for attention, pulling you back toward authenticity and meaning. To ignore it is like shutting off a fire alarm while flames consume the house. Yet to honor it is to step into the very doorway of transformation. So many men spend their years chasing status, money, or validation, hoping that external success will quiet the restless void. They pour themselves into long hours of work, endless distractions, or empty pleasures, believing that achievements will heal the silent ache within. But spiritual wisdom makes it clear that no amount of outer gain can resolve the dissonance when your outer life does not match your inner life. You can own the finest possessions, receive applause from the world, and still wake up each morning with the heavy feeling that something is missing. Because true fulfillment is born only when your actions, values, and essence are aligned. The emptiness exists to remind you that you have abandoned parts of yourself, that you are not living in harmony with your deepest truth. This is where spirituality and spiritual awakening reveal their power. For awakening does not arrive in comfort, but in the friction of pain, the hunger for truth, and the courage to face the shadow you have long denied. The numbness, the restlessness, the haunting sense of being out of place, these are not curses, but invitations. They ask you to slow down, to listen, to ask yourself difficult questions. What is this pain trying to teach me? Which part of my soul have I silenced? What truth am I refusing to live? Jung believed that confronting suffering with awareness transforms it into guidance, because pain carries the hidden key to meaning. The The shocking truth is that emptiness is not here to destroy you, but to awaken you. It is the soul knocking on the door of consciousness, urging you to remember who you are and why you are here. When you reframe your suffering as a signal rather than a defect, you begin to see it as the very path back to life itself. By embracing it instead of running from it, you stop wasting your days in quiet despair and start walking toward a life where your inner world and your outer world are finally in harmony. And it is in that harmony that you find not only peace, but also the unshakable strength of living a meaningful life. If you understand that the feeling of emptiness is not a defect, but a signal for change, comment below, "I choose growth," to affirm your commitment to transformation and spiritual wisdom. 2. Medication can mask the deeper problem. Medication may silence your symptoms, but what it often does is distract you from the deeper wound, your disconnection from the authentic self. Modern society convinces you that if you are busy, you are valuable, and if you are in pain, there is always a pill to numb it. Yet beneath the noise and numbness lies a truth you cannot escape. The truth Carl Jung described when he said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Because in trying to escape discomfort, you may be wasting your life in ways you do not even notice. This is not to dismiss medication, for in many cases it is necessary and life-saving, but rather to challenge the illusion that symptom management equals healing. Because you and I both know a life can look functional on the surface, yet feel hollow underneath. And what makes it hollow is the lack of meaning, the absence of a why, which Viktor Frankl taught us is the very force that allows us to bear any how. When you quiet your suffering without asking what it means, you silence the messenger that came to awaken you. And Jung warned that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. So you must ask yourself, what if the very pain you are trying to escape is the door to your real life? Think of a man who works endless hours, takes medication to sleep, wakes to screens, and calls it living. His body moves, his tasks get done, but his soul feels forgotten, and that forgotten life is the costliest bill you will ever pay. Spiritual wisdom does not call you to abandon help, but to go deeper than help, to uncover the truth that the ache itself is an invitation, urging you to turn inward, to see what parts of yourself you have exiled in the name of survival, approval, or control. The shadow self, those disowned desires, hidden fears, and unlived possibilities, keeps knocking at the edges of your awareness. And when you repress it, it leaks through anxiety, depression, addictions, and restless dissatisfaction. When you begin to listen to it with courage, it becomes your teacher. This is the path of spiritual awakening, not the dramatic fireworks of instant transformation, but the steady daily act of noticing, of daring to tell the truth, of keeping one small promise to yourself that affirms who you really are. It is not about grand gestures, but about realignment, about setting one boundary you have long avoided, speaking one honest sentence to someone you trust, creating one daily ritual that anchors you in presence instead of distraction, and pursuing one passion that breathes life into your days. In practice, this could mean journaling until the surface chatter quiets and the real sentences arrive, walking without headphones just to hear your own thoughts, praying in silence until your heartbeat finds its rhythm with your purpose, or seeking a wise mentor or therapist, not because you are broken, but because you deserve to be witnessed in your becoming. With each step you take, the frantic pull of distraction will begin to ease. The hollow metrics of productivity will lose their hold, and in their place will rise the quiet fulfillment of alignment. Jung reminded us, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And that privilege is yours to claim, but only if you stop numbing and start noticing. If you stop running and start listening. If you let your pain reveal the path instead of hiding it. For when you honor your soul in this way, you no longer need endless tricks to feel alive. You awaken to the life already within you, guided by presence, meaning, and the deep assurance that your spirit truly matters. 3. Modern life is structurally soul-crushing. We are raised in a world that measures us by how much we produce rather than how deeply we live. A world that rewards conformity, achievement, and consumption while silencing the whisper of our inner voice. You know this feeling well. Your calendar fills with tasks that look important but leave you empty. Your days pass in a rhythm of meetings and deadlines that demand your presence yet ignore your essence. And little by little, you forget that life is not meant to be a performance. Carl Jung called this mask the persona, and while it helps us function in society, it becomes dangerous when it becomes our entire identity. Beneath it lies the shadow, all the truths and desires you have buried to be accepted, and beyond both is the self, your truest center, the source of meaning that calls you to awaken. Jung's timeless warning still echoes today. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. When you chase careers, images, or money without listening to that inner call, you slowly trade your life for someone else's dream. And the tragedy is that you may succeed at things that never mattered to you. Picture a man in his 40s who has spent 2 decades climbing the corporate ladder, praised by colleagues, envied by neighbors, admired for his steady rise. Yet every Sunday evening, dread coils in his chest, not because of the workload, but because deep down, he knows he is living someone else's story. During a quiet train ride home, he hears a thought surface like a whisper from his soul. This is not my path. For the first time, instead of dismissing it, he writes it down. That single act of honesty becomes a seed. He begins small, declining one unnecessary meeting, carving out an hour for work that feels alive, enrolling in a night class that connects with his deeper gifts. Nothing explodes, yet everything shifts. His body feels lighter, his choices clearer, and for the first time in years, he is not merely productive, he is fulfilled. This is what spirituality in action looks like, not escaping the world, but entering it with integrity, alignment, and the courage to be true. Jung reminded us, who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. An awakening begins with simple, consistent steps toward truth. You too can begin where you are. Start your mornings not with emails or notifications, but with a question. What would integrity do today? Keep a notebook where you write one honest line each night, because truth multiplies when recorded. Protect your energy with boundaries, saying no to roles that drain your soul, and yes to work that feeds your purpose. Surround yourself with people who encourage your growth rather than profit from your confusion, because community shapes character more than any paycheck. Pay attention to your body when your words say yes, but your heart contracts. That is wisdom speaking louder than logic. Let money, image, and status serve as tools, but never masters. Most of all, remember that presence matters more than performance, that life is not waiting for you somewhere in the future, but is asking for your full attention right here. When you honor this, you stop wasting your days on illusions and begin living them as sacred steps of spiritual growth. A journey where your inner voice is no longer silenced, but becomes the compass guiding you toward the person you were always meant to be. If you feel the weight of modern life, but are ready to rise above it, repeat after me. I choose to break free from the soul-crushing patterns of this world. I honor my spirit and awaken my true self today. 4. Anxiety and depression are messages from the soul. Anxiety and depression are not flaws in your character or signs that you are weak. They are urgent messages from the soul telling you that something in your life is out of balance and must change. Burnout, panic, or numbness are not malfunctions to be silenced, but warning lights that your deeper self has been ignored for too long. And as Carl Jung said, neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering, meaning that when we refuse to endure the honest pain of change and truth, we invite an even heavier pain into our lives. These emotions are not random. They are a compass pointing you toward what you have denied, suppressed, or abandoned within yourself. Think of the man who has built a life of success on the outside, yet lies awake at night with a restless mind and an empty heart. His anxiety is not a curse. It is the soul's way of demanding authenticity, urging him to stop pretending and finally listen. The danger is that society teaches men to medicate these feelings, bury them under work, numb them with alcohol or distractions, and pretend that strength means silence. But the more you avoid the truth, the louder the soul cries out. Jung believed that real healing begins when you confront your shadow, those hidden fears, wounds, and unexpressed desires you have pushed away. Anxiety is the shadow knocking on your door, not to destroy you, but to lead you back to yourself. And depression is not the end, but the invitation to go deeper, to shed the false layers and awaken to who you truly are. Spirituality reminds us that every symptom carries meaning, that what feels like a breakdown can become a breakthrough if you have the courage to face it. A man who ignores these inner signals will repeat the same cycles of failed relationships, hollow victories, and unexplained anger. But a man who chooses to listen begins to rebuild his life from the inside out. He learns that suffering is not meaningless. It is purposeful, guiding him to live in alignment with his soul rather than in the prison of society's expectations. When you reframe anxiety and depression as sacred messages instead of enemies, you begin to see that they are the soul's way of pulling you out of wasting your life in avoidance and pushing you toward a spiritual awakening. And in that awakening, you discover that every fear can be transformed into fuel. Every wound can become wisdom, and every shadow you confront becomes the doorway to a more authentic and powerful life. 5. The real cure is the path of individuation. Carl Jung revealed that the real cure for wasting your life is the path of individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming your true self rather than the version that society molds for you. Most people spend their days chasing approval, wealth, and recognition, yet in doing so, they lose touch with their inner truth. Individuation is about peeling away those masks and reconnecting with what is authentic within. As Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. This is not a luxury, but a necessity, because without it, life feels shallow and empty no matter how much success you accumulate. Individuation demands that you face your unconscious, walk into the hidden corridors of your psyche, where wounds and fears live, and have the courage to bring them into the light. To walk this path, you must confront your shadow, the denied and repressed parts of yourself that you fear or refuse to accept. The shadow is not only darkness, it holds your hidden talents, your unrealized strength, and your untapped creativity. Jung warned that what you fail to make conscious will return to you as fate, meaning that your ignored inner patterns will secretly control your relationships, choices, and future until you face them. Many people live on repeat, sabotaging their happiness because they never confront these unconscious forces. Individuation breaks this cycle, freeing you to make conscious choices and live intentionally rather than blindly. This process also requires embracing the denied aspects of your personality. The anger you bury, the softness you hide, the compassion you withhold. Every suppressed part carries the key to your wholeness, and integration is the only way to feel complete. True healing does not come from pretending to be good or perfect, but from accepting the fullness of who you are, light and dark, strong and fragile, rational and emotional. Jung's spiritual wisdom reminds us that the path to freedom is through honesty with yourself, not conformity to others. Modern life makes this difficult. Endless scrolling, shallow comparisons, and the constant pressure to perform are all ways of running away from your inner call. Yet if you dare to listen, that call leads to a depth of life no distraction can give. Jung's truth remains shocking today because most people are not truly living. They are merely existing trapped in routine, consumed by obligations, and hypnotized by society's narrow definition of success. A wasted life is not one without possessions, but one without self-knowledge. Individuation is the antidote, awakening you to the realization that real happiness and meaning come only from alignment with your inner being. Your fate changes the moment you choose to face yourself, because the destiny of your soul is not fixed. It unfolds through your courage to explore the inner world. The journey of individuation is demanding, but it is also the most liberating path you can take, because it grants authenticity, peace, and true spiritual awakening. It is not a single achievement, but a lifelong unfolding of your essence, a daily practice of returning to who you were always meant to be. When you dare to walk this path, you discover that the greatest victory is not found in becoming what others expect, but in living as your most authentic, unapologetic, and conscious self. This is Carl Jung's shocking truth, and it is the spiritual wisdom that can keep you from ever wasting your life. If you're ready to walk the true path of individuation, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your reflections in the comments. Together, we grow in spiritual wisdom. 6. Facing the shadow is the key to wholeness. There is a hidden part of you that you often avoid, the side that holds envy, anger, and shame. And Carl Jung named this the shadow, the forgotten corner of the soul that operates in silence yet directs so much of your life. As he wrote, knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people, reminding us that what we bury within will eventually shape the way we see others and the way we live. When ignored, the shadow becomes a puppeteer, pulling strings from the unconscious. But when faced and integrated, it turns into a reservoir of strength, vitality, and authenticity. Consider the story of a young woman named Sarah, who always felt resentment rise whenever her friends shared their achievements. She convinced herself she was simply being humble, yet the bitterness gnawed at her quietly, pushing her toward endless scrolling, comparing, and silently criticizing. One day, after a conversation that left her boiling with frustration, she chose to sit with her discomfort instead of running from it. And she admitted to herself that beneath the resentment was a deep longing to pursue her own dreams that she had been shelving for years. By facing this truth, Sarah uncovered that her anger was not her enemy, but a signal pointing to a neglected part of her, and that her envy was not proof of weakness, but a compass showing her what truly mattered. From that moment, she set aside time to focus on her own creative projects, began asking for help instead of waiting in silence, and discovered that when she brought awareness to her shadow, her relationships became less strained and her energy less divided. Jung reminded us, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." And in this lies the power of transformation. When you stop running from your shadow, you begin reclaiming your power to choose. The shadow is not evil. It is simply the exiled potential you have not yet owned. And in it lies the raw material for growth. Envy becomes inspiration to aim higher. Anger becomes the courage to protect your boundaries. And shame becomes the humility that keeps you compassionate. Real spirituality is not about pretending to float above conflict, but about walking into life with eyes wide open, willing to meet every contradiction within you, and from that meeting, turning wounds into wisdom. The next time you feel jealousy, irritation, or insecurity rising, see them as doorways rather than obstacles, because each difficult feeling holds a message. And if you listen deeply, you transform what once sabotaged you into what strengthens you. What you resist not only persists, but will grow in size, wrote Jung, reminding us that resistance fuels the shadow, but conscious awareness liberates it. The lessons are simple, yet profound. Acknowledge what you feel instead of denying it. Ask what value or desire the feeling is pointing toward. Take one small action that honors that value and share the truth with someone you trust, so secrecy cannot feed the shame. By practicing this consistently, you stop being a victim of hidden forces and begin leading your life with clarity and wholeness. This is the essence of spirituality and the heart of spiritual growth. To love every part of yourself enough to bring it into the light, to choose responsibility over avoidance, and to transform your unconscious patterns into the conscious building blocks of a life that feels aligned, powerful, and fully your own. 7. You must reconnect with the unconscious. Carl Jung once said, "What you do not bring to consciousness returns as fate." And in that single truth lies the reason so many men feel restless, even when their lives look successful on the outside. The unconscious mind is not just a storehouse of forgotten memories, but also of unresolved traumas and hidden gifts. And when it is ignored, it leaks into your choices, your relationships, and your destiny in ways you may not see until it is too late. You may chase wealth, recognition, or distractions, But if you remain disconnected from your unconscious, you will still feel that quiet emptiness at night when everything else falls silent. Healing begins not with quick affirmations or surface fixes, but with deep introspection through your dreams, through art, through silence, and through the courage to explore what lies beneath your everyday mask. In the modern world, where noise never stops and responsibilities never end, many men push these inner whispers aside, dismissing their dreams as meaningless or their unease as weakness. Yet dreams are the language of the soul. Silence is the doorway to truth, and even the restlessness you feel is a signal that something within you is asking to be heard. Jung's warning is clear. If you do not face the unconscious, it will rule your life without your consent, and you will call it fate. Picture the man who spends decades building a career, earning respect, providing for his family, yet still lies awake at night with a sorrow he cannot name. He tries motivational slogans and positive thinking, but nothing sticks because his deeper wounds remain untouched. When he finally begins journaling his dreams, sketching the images that haunt him, and giving himself time in silence each day, he discovers not only the pain of childhood he buried, but also the creativity and passion he thought had died. By meeting his unconscious, he doesn't lose himself, he finds himself. The unconscious is not your enemy. It is your greatest ally waiting to be acknowledged. Within it are not only the scars you fear, but also the strengths you need to transform your life. To reconnect with it is to stop wasting your life on illusions and start living with clarity and depth. True spirituality is not about escaping reality, but about awakening to it, making peace with your shadows, and uncovering the treasures hidden within them. When you allow silence to speak, when you honor your dreams as messages, when you open yourself to art and inner exploration, you begin to walk a path of authenticity that no amount of external success could ever replace. This is the essence of spiritual awakening, the courage to face yourself fully, and in doing so, to live a life that is no longer ruled by fate, but guided by conscious choice. If this message on reconnecting with the unconscious has inspired you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss powerful insights like this. Comment below. I choose to reconnect with my unconscious to affirm your journey today. 8. Fear keeps you paralyzed in an inauthentic life. Fear has a way of freezing you into a version of life that does not belong to you. A life that looks stable on the outside, but feels hollow inside. The truth is that most people avoid healing because it means walking through fear, loss, and uncertainty. Yet this avoidance only keeps them anesthetized, trapped on autopilot, and cut off from their own vitality. Carl Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain," reminding us that awakening is not a painless process, but a necessary one. The pain of confronting what is hidden is the very doorway to becoming whole, and when you refuse to face that doorway, you remain paralyzed in an inauthentic life where your choices are no longer truly your own. Every time you silence the call to heal, the unconscious begins to live your life for you, shaping relationships, decisions, and even your sense of purpose. As Jung warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The fears you bury today become the chains that quietly guide you tomorrow. Think about the times you felt numb, drifting through routines that offered no meaning. Those seasons where you were physically present but spiritually absent. You will recognize how avoidance drains your essence more than any direct confrontation ever could. Because fear, when unexamined, becomes your master. Yet spiritual wisdom teaches us that fear itself is not the enemy. It is a messenger, a signal that something important within you is asking for attention and protection. When you turn toward that fear with presence rather than running from it, the shadows begin to shrink under the light of your awareness. It is like stepping into a dark room with a lamp, where monsters dissolve into manageable shapes the moment you actually see them. Healing begins in small, practical steps, asking yourself daily what you are afraid to feel, noticing where that fear lives in your body, breathing into that space with honesty, and then naming one truth you have avoided saying aloud. The act of naming begins to loosen the chains of silence. From there, you take one courageous action, a boundary set, a conversation opened, a toxic habit released. Though anxiety may rise, let it be your signal that you are stepping from the known into the necessary. Transformation does not come in a single thunderclap, but in a steady drumbeat of small, brave choices repeated again and again. As Jung observed, what you resist not only persists, but grows in size. The energy you spend suppressing fear could be the very energy you reclaim to love more deeply, to create with passion, and to live with authenticity. If you fear that looking into the dark will extinguish your light, remember Rumi's truth. The wound is the place where the light enters you. This is not merely poetic comfort, but a profound manual for awakening. To stop wasting your life is to stop running from yourself, to choose presence over pretense, to choose responsibility over excuses, and to choose devotion over distraction. When you do, you discover that fear is not the wall it once seemed, but the door to freedom you have been circling for years. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. Jung's words echo across time to remind you that awakening is not a single moment, but an ongoing practice of aligning your inner truth with your outer life. The most frightening door is the one that leads to your liberation. Yet your hand is already on the handle, waiting only for your courage to turn it. 9. Your pain is a call to awaken. Your pain is not proof that you are weak. It is a signal that your soul is asking you to pay attention, a gentle but persistent reminder that something essential is missing in the way you are living. The emptiness you sometimes feel is not failure. It is the absence of your true self in your own life. And that ache is the invitation to return to who you really are. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That means, if you keep ignoring this quiet call, you will continue to live a script written by others, drifting through roles and routines that do not belong to you. Awakening, therefore, is not about chasing dramatic change, but about choosing every day to step away from the life you have been conditioned to live and moving closer to the truth and inner purpose that already live within you. Think of how often people hide behind busyness, achievements, or distractions, only to realize that none of it feels fulfilling. A woman I once knew, admired at work for her consistency, found herself exhausted every night, scrolling endlessly just to silence the restlessness. One day, she stumbled upon the words, "Awakening means leaving behind the life you've been conditioned to live and choosing to live one aligned with your truth and inner purpose. That single line became her turning point. She didn't quit her job or abandon her responsibilities. Instead, she carved out 10 minutes every morning just for herself, writing what she valued, asking what truly mattered, and gently noticing where she was living for others instead of for her own spirit. Within weeks, she felt a shift. Her focus sharpened. Her evenings became spaces for creativity and connection, and her weekends felt alive again. Pain, once seen as her enemy, had become her teacher. Your story can unfold in the same way. Maybe your pain is pushing you to set a boundary you've been afraid to enforce, to give voice to a passion you've kept buried, or to protect your energy from things that drain you. This is what spirituality looks like in practice, not an escape from reality, but a deeper embrace of it. Jung also reminded us, who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. When you look inside, you begin to see that your pain is simply pointing toward values you have neglected. The key to spiritual growth is to honor those values in small, consistent actions. Start by naming the pattern that causes your suffering, then ask yourself, which part of your truth is being silenced? Commit to one daily choice that honors it, a mindful walk, an hour for your art, a firm no to a demand that isn't yours to carry, or a ritual of prayer, journaling, or meditation that centers you. At the end of each day, reflect on what felt alive and what felt empty, and share your truth with someone you trust, because healing magnifies when mirrored by another soul. Do not complicate the path, because growth is not a performance. It is a steady practice of alignment, and the soul speaks most clearly through these quiet, consistent acts. You are not late. You are not lost. You are not destined to wander without meaning. Life changes the moment you claim ownership of your attention and begin to protect the conditions that allow your spirit to breathe. Let your pain be a doorway instead of a sentence. Remember these truths. Your pain carries wisdom, not shame. Your values are your map. Your daily choices are the engine of change. Reflection is your compass, and connection with others is your anchor. Hold close the reminder that emptiness is not weakness. It is simply the soul waiting to return, and that awakening means leaving behind the conditioning of the world to live aligned with your deepest truth and your inner purpose. 10. Real transformation is painful, but worth it. Real transformation is never a smooth or easy path, because it asks you to let go of the masks, the comforts, and the shallow habits that once made you feel safe. Yet those very sacrifices open the doorway to true freedom, authenticity, and peace. As Carl Jung reminds us, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, and that privilege is not handed out cheaply. It demands courage, honesty, and the willingness to face discomfort head-on. The journey is filled with resistance at first, sleepless nights, the sting of giving up distractions, the awkwardness of saying no where you once said yes, the loneliness of stepping away from shallow approval. But this struggle is not punishment. It is preparation, shaping you into a man who can stand in his own truth without crumbling under pressure. When you decide to embrace spirituality and step into spiritual awakening, you begin to notice how much of your energy was wasted on things that never mattered. Every moment you spent comparing yourself to others, every hour you numbed your feelings with scrolling or drinking, every day you postponed the hard conversation. These were fragments of your life slipping away. Transformation calls you to reclaim them. It may begin with something as simple as sitting quietly for 10 minutes each morning, writing down the truths you can no longer ignore, or admitting to someone close to you that you've been hiding behind anger or fear. These small acts of honesty, repeated over time, build a bridge between the man you pretend to be and the man you truly are. And though each step costs you comfort, convenience, and even the approval of those who like the old version of you, the reward is far greater. Dignity, clarity, and a deep sense of inner freedom that no one can take away. This is not a theoretical promise, but a lived reality. Many men in midlife find themselves with the title, the house, and the routine, yet with an emptiness they cannot name. Only when life delivers a jolt, a health scare, a broken relationship, or a crisis of meaning do they realize the cost of delay. But you do not have to wait for catastrophe to wake up. You can choose today to practice courage in small, steady ways, to face the shadow you've avoided, to release the soft addictions that dull your spirit, to protect your energy like a precious resource. Each choice rewires your life toward purpose. Each sacrifice carves space for peace, and each honest act calls you deeper into the man you were meant to become. The truth is simple but demanding. The painful road of transformation is the only one that leads to lasting freedom. And the more you walk it, the more you discover that the pain was never wasted. It was the price of becoming real. So as we've explored in today's video, Carl Jung reminds us that life becomes wasted when we live unconsciously, repeating old patterns and ignoring the deeper call of our soul. True meaning and happiness come when we awaken, confront our inner truths, and choose a life that aligns with who we really are. At Spiritual Wisdom, our mission is to guide you toward that awakening. Now, I want to hear from you. What is one step you're ready to take today to stop wasting your life and start living with intention? Share your thoughts in the comments, because your journey might just inspire someone else's. And if this message spoke to you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more wisdom that can transform your life.